Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, hope you're all doing alright out there. So yes, the new DRZ has been announced finally. After 25 years of the old DRZ running, pretty much, 24, 25 years, they have finally come out with a new one. I recently made a video talking about the fact that there had been rumours that the DRZ was going to return. I think in 2020 a catalytic converter patent was found, and in more recent times some more patents for an EFI system were found, and people really got to like put two and two together and were like, yeah, there really is going to be a new DRZ. And I said about how I didn't think it would end up going on sale in the UK because to get it through all the emission stuffs, to make the modifications to get it sold in the UK, is going to end up with a bike which is going to cost too much money. So confident of this fact, I said in a video a little while ago talking about all this, should they sell a DRZ new one in the UK before the end of 2025, I will shave my head. Well, it is coming to the UK. So it looks like I will be shaving my head at some point, but I'm not doing it until the bikes are on the shop floor. Although I am going to give you an option, which is you could nominate a colour I have to dye my hair. Now, the only reason I say this is because I scare old ladies when I shave my hair, but if you insist on shaving my hair, I'll do that. But I think the other option might be more fun. If I'm going to be playing a forfeit, it might as well be more than just being bald. Now, continuing on, the reason people are asking me, what do I think of the new DRZ so much, is because I own the old one. I've had it for 9 years. I've done an awful lot of stuff with it. It's now 440cc. It's been stripped down to the frame and built back up in a build series called Restoration Z, which there is a playlist on my channel. And the reason I did that was because of rust. So that's something I'm going to get into when we get talking about this. I started filming this video earlier on and I actually read through this specifications page announcement, and what they were saying about the bike in the salesman way they do was just annoying me so much that it took me away from the DR being the actual center of attention. So what I've done is I've read everything and I've now more concisely put things together in my head. So here you go. Here's what I think of the new DRZ400 SM. From the perspective of not having previously owned one or having aspirations of what I would like to see it do, I think it looks all right. I'm not entirely keen on the front end, and there's some things in the specs that I would be a little bit concerned about, but it really, really, really hinges on how much this bike's going to be when it comes out. I believe this bike should be 8 grand max, hopefully quite a bit less than that, maybe nearer 7, because it's got competition to compete with, and as you're going to see from when I do the direct comparisons as to between the old one and the new one as to why we wanted some changes, you'll see why this bike might be a bit more limited than other options there for similar prices, unless it's dirt cheap. So here's some pictures of it. I'm not entirely keen of the front fender design. I'm not entirely keen of the headlight design. We'll get onto the actual headlight in a minute. But I do think it looks a bit more modern, but at the same time it looks like, who made that? There's no way of knowing who made that. That doesn't look anything like the old DR, apart from the bottom of the engine, which looks identical. The swing arm looks very similar in this angle. Pegs look similar. The frame coming up here looks similar, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm trying to see if I can see the top of these forks, and I can't see any adjusters there. Suzuki's made this video, which is pure cringe, most of it, to be honest with you. Are they actually going to give us any shots of the dash? Yeah, see, this is the dash. Sorry if that was very loud. No, we have a fuel gauge now, which is a great plus. But we'll get into that. So let's look at some of the things they point out, and then I'm going to go into the specifications because I've got the specs on the sheet and I've got comparisons between the old and the new. So they've given it a new steel frame, but it's very similar to the old frame. This bit's all pretty much the same. These rails are the same. This all looks the same. These looks very similar. Where it gets different is this is a twin spar, you might call it, whereas in the old one used to be a singular pole up the middle. So the frame is slightly different, but it is still a dry sump. But you will note it appears they've removed the steering lock off the side, so we might actually have a combined steering lock now, which is a good thing. But again, it's a steel frame, which is dry sump. Dry sump meaning that some oil is kept in the frame, some oil is kept in the engine. There are benefits to this, like you get better ground clearance because the engine sump doesn't need to be so big to have that capacity of oil, and you also have the oil in two different places, so you can have more of it, kind of. But the thing with dry sumps is it means you have to drain the oil out of the engine, you have to drain the oil out of the frame, there's hidden screens and stuff in there. It's just a lot more complicated for maintenance. Not really that bad. As I said, I own one. I do this whenever I do an oil change, but I do think for most people, they're not going to want to deal with that. And I'm not sure that the pros outweigh the cons. Another thing they're really highlighting, and I'll get to this in a moment, is the fact that this is using the Suzuki Ride Assist Intelligent something system. It's basically the same electronic system that comes on all their bikes. It means you get power modes, it gets you traction control, ABS, and again, we'll get into that more. But this amount of electronics and traction control on this bike, I don't think is necessary. Headlight, they've replaced the old candle in a jam jar headlight with an LED in a jam jar. Ironically, this might very well put out more light than the old one, but I am concerned that this is going to have the same problems as the old light had, that it's just going to be a bit useless. If you took the old light like I did and replace it with a nice LED one, you get way better light throw and width. It's just way better. And it passes its MOT, no problem at all. So I'm not really keen about this headlight design unless that magically gives really good coverage. So these are the key features. You can read this, and some of the stuff they say in here truly makes me want to rant. There you go. There it is. If you want to read, I mean, you can just go to the website and read this. If this is cheap enough that it makes it substantially cheaper than things that it's up against in the UK market, I can only talk about the UK market, like the Husqvarna, like the 690, I think it has a reasonable chance as being an everyday, less focused dual sport supermoto. But it has to be cheap. If it gets anywhere near the price of a second-hand 701 or 690, people are gonna choose that over this a lot. And one of the things I'm concerned about this is, who is this being aimed at now? Because it's still as tall and impractical as the DR has ever been, really, which is normally something young people want, but there aren't young people buying expensive bikes. It's old people who have the money to spend on things. And the DR wasn't popular here before. If this thing comes out at anything other than really cheap, I fear it's going to have a serious problem. For reasons I'm going to get into more now, because as I say, it's almost like they've made, if you read their blurb, it's almost like they've made a DRZ for people who are scared of an original DRZ, like it was a power crazy thing that needed taming down and handling, and all these adaptations have made it much more controllable. And it's like, what? It's a bike that was known for being heavy and underpowered. So key features, ABS. It has ABS because it has to have ABS for it to get through the regulations to be Euro 5 plus. Rear ABS off, which means you can't turn the front one off. Why? Why? I get that you have to put ABS on this bike. Allow us to fully turn it off. Ride-by-wire throttle is a no-brainer because you're going to get that because they are using the Suzuki Intelligent Ride System, which basically builds all these things into it. So the ride-by-wire throttle, the easy start, they come with it. The low RPM assist actually might be quite useful for this bike because people do struggle not stalling it in some cases. This is a power modes option, which makes zero sense at all to a bike with this little power. This is a traction control system. This is gravel mode because you couldn't dare take this bike off-road with all that power, even though I took my one off-road on mud all the time with road tyres. Like, I don't get why they've got this in there. This is to do with some coatings, I believe. Yeah. This one is, it has a slipper clutch, which I don't think it should have. Because when it comes to a bike like this, you want to dump down through the box and lock up the rear wheel and use it as much of that engine braking as you possibly can. Sure, you can just dump down the box with a slipper clutch and use the brakes more, but I don't know, I don't feel like a slipper clutch should be in this bike. And you see Euro 5 Plus. So when this bike is released, I will be able to review this bike on its own without making comparisons to the old DRZ. You know, you can look at it for what it is as itself. And as itself, as long as the price is right, it's a pretty cool bike. And it might be better than the original DR in the sense of it might be more usable, it might be more reliable, because they've made some changes in the engine to try and gain back some mechanical losses that were from the last bike, and also to try and minimize vibrations, which might allow you to rev it out a bit further without feeling like you're going to destroy it. That might make it more sustainable at 70 miles an hour on the motorway, because as I say, the problem with the original DR is 70 is a bit fast for it on a motorway. The gearing's too short for it. Now, that's why everyone said we'd like lighter, more power. We want 6 gears, and as I said, the headlight. Well, the headlight is a bit, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but let's run through the specs. So I've got my spec sheet here, and the thing I'm going to read out is going to be what the old DR had, and then I'm going to say what the new one has afterwards, so it's in that order. Old, then new. 398cc, the same. 90 by 62.6mm bore and stroke, the same. Engine layout, single cylinder, the same. Dual overhead cam, 4 valve, liquid cooled, same. Power of the old one. Now, I've seen several different figures for the old DR, from 33 to nearly 40 brake horsepower claimed, but the one that I found today said it had 39.7 brake horsepower, 8,500 RPM. The new bike has 37.5 brake horsepower. So by these numbers, the new bike has less power, not more. We wanted like a 500, a 550, something bigger, but we didn't get that. We got the same engine. The bottom half of it, I'll show you this here. The bottom half of this engine looks exactly the same as the old one. You can see it's got 5 gears still. This is all the same. This is all the same. I think what they've done is they've changed the head upwards to get the EFI in it. Also, they've got titanium valves on one side and sodium filled valves on the other, and they're going on and on about all this. So it's like, it's very much the same engine that's been converted to EFI. Torque. The old one had 28.8 foot-pounds of torque. That is 39 newton meters. The new one has 37 newton meters. So again, less than the old DR. Transmission. 5-speed. They haven't put a 6-speed in it. They haven't changed the gearing to make them longer, as far as I know. It is the same bottom half of the engine, so you're going to get the same gearbox, so you're probably going to get the same problem that this bike won't happily sit at 70 miles an hour. So forget touring, unless you're going to go on B roads or A roads, just not M roads. As I say, everyone wanted 6 gears. Suzuki has not done that again in this example, because it seems like they haven't changed the bottom end of that engine. The old bike was criticised for having a small tank at 10 litres. The new one has a tank of 8.7 litres. So an even smaller tank. So it's probably better that it doesn't go on the motorway, because if you had 6 gears in an 8.7 litre tank, you're stopping every, 90 odd miles, something like that maybe. The old frame was made from steel. The new frame is made from steel, and again, it is a dry sump. I would have preferred if it had an aluminium frame, because I think off-road bikes need to have corrosion-resistant materials on them. And I had to deal with all the rust, that was on the bottom of my bike. And if I'd not sorted it when I did, it would have done a lot more damage. I like aluminium used in things. It means it doesn't corrode. The dry sump, as I say, I don't think the bike needs it, but I do understand why it's there. I don't know if they could do, they can do a dry sump or aluminium frame, but then the problem is it's thin-walled and stuff, so it's just, as I say, if you read the specs, it seems like they're trying to make this a more everyday person-friendly dual sport, but then they've introduced a dry sump into it, which makes it far more complicated. The old DR had adjustable front suspension. The new one, I can't tell if it's adjustable or not. I can't see on it if it's adjustable. So, I don't know. But it's a monoshock and inverted forks on both the old one and the new one. They haven't given any sizes for the brakes, so I'm going to assume that they're just the old brakes that were on the old DR, and if that's the case, they're not great. I really hope they have improved, oh no. It's the same brake disc, it's the same caliper, it's going to be the same master cylinder, isn't it? The DR's brakes are crap. there's no real other way of saying this. The stock brakes are a bit crap. I would really, really have liked to have seen some money spent there to get it a decent set of brakes. It's like a 20-plus-year-old brake design. Things have moved forward. I'd like to have seen something better on there. So wheels and tyres are all the same. Dimensions, it's basically identical. The seat height is the same. The wheelbase is 5mm longer on the new one. And then the curb weight, and this is another one of the problems. The old one was listed 146 kilos, the new one is 154 kilos. So as I say, we wanted a DRZ which had more power, weighed less, had more gears, and was more capable. And we've been given a DR which has got the same engine with slightly less power from the looks of it, smaller fuel tank, still with 5 gears, still the same old brakes, and it weighs more. So as I say, depending on price very, very, very heavily, this could be a cool bike to anyone that looks at it. But when you look at the competition that's out there, when you look at what came before, it's a bit crap. I'm sorry, it is. It's Suzuki, you did not listen to your customers at all. And this one is particularly egregious because you've had so long to listen to the people who have bought the bike and used them and loved them. I love my old DR. It really is close to my heart. But I wanted to see it done right. I wanted to see it improved. I wanted to see something, a statement. I wanted to see, look, the last one lasted 25 years. This one will last 25 years. Okay, well, no, well, they can't make them for 25 years because of the rule changes that might be coming up in the future. But whatever, even if they converted it electric in the future, I wanted to see something a bit braver. I wanted to see an actual improvement. And what I've seen is something which is slightly worse than it. And it kind of, from what I've read through their blurb, feels like they're trying to sell it to a different set of people. Because that, or they do not understand their customers at all. I do not understand why they've gone to put the effort of putting traction control and, you know, power modes on a bike with 37 horsepower. It doesn't need it. It's got its own traction control. It's called no brake horsepower. They really, really dropped the ball on this, but they did. I'll be honest with you, they didn't, because Suzuki has got no balls. They lost their balls a long time ago. Now, as I say, I'm going to review this bike unless I pee off Suzuki so much that I can't get my hands on one. To be fair, I don't get them from Suzuki directly anyway. I get them through dealerships. So, yeah, but it's annoying that it both looks quite cool, but I know it could have been so much better. If they'd made it a 500, if they'd made it lighter, like, you're not, the thing is, like, the dry sump, for instance, they're saying it's a benefit for ground clearance, yet we know most people who are buying this bike, how many of them are really taking it off-road? How many of them would not, I mean, how much extra belly pan do you need for a litre of oil? I mean, by that, you lose a couple of centimetres, well, have the frame rails in a slightly better place, put a big bash plate right up against the engine, do something, make it not have to have a dry sump, and give it a lighter frame, like, or somehow save weight out of the thing to make it not weigh more. It's so frustrating that they've chucked all this traction control and electronics package in it, which you're paying for. That's going to be in the price of the bike, when they could have just not bothered. It didn't need it. It just needed EFI. Also note, if we go in the video here, that the dash is one of the cheaper sorts of dashes that you, I mean, it looks like liquid crystal display sort of thing. It might be actually be LED, but why it's not like a full colour OLED or something like that, I don't know. Of course, we can't be sure of what's what because of the pricing on this thing. If they can bring the price in so low that it looks like a great middle runner position, like, you know, yeah, it's not as good as the more expensive Specialized bikes, but this is more of an everyday one, like sub £7,000, around that sort of point maybe, okay, fine, it's got a point in the market. But if it's much more than that, well, then you're getting really close to the price of a 701 second hand, or even getting closer to, you know, the price of one new. And the thing about the Husqvarna 701 and the 690s is to remember that they weigh 3 kilos less than the new DRZ, but instead of having 37 brake horsepower and 5 gears, they have 74 brake horsepower, 6 gears, and can easily sit on a motorway. talking about the intelligent rider system thing that I was talking about, this is what I mean about the way it reads. Suzuki, if you're seeing this, stop doing this. It's cringe. Who are you selling? No one reads this and goes, wow, that's really cool. They just go, what the hell are you on about? Features a collection of advanced electronic rider assist systems that help optimize performance characteristics to suit your changing riding needs and preferences by realizing a more controllable, predictable, and less tiring riding experience. It's a 37 horsepower single cylinder bike. What are you on, you nutters? I've taken my DR from hot tarmac roads and freezing cold roads literally covered in ice. I've been on road, I've been off road. That bike does not need any of that stuff. It does not need power modes, it does not need traction control, it does not need ABS that can't be turned off. I mean, the traction control, I can't even see a way that it can be fully turned off. And if that's the case, just why? And in the gravel mode allows you an amount of tyre slip when riding on unpaved surfaces so the bike remains controllable while at the same time delivering a constant power output you want for exploring unpaved roads, country trails, and for greater confidence, blah, blah, blah. No! The concern on a trail when you're green laning, even with road tyres, is not the rear tyre spinning. I want to use that to aid me. I don't want a mode that's making it safe. The problem is the front wheel. That's the one that kind of, you know, goes where it wants to go. So it's like, oh yes, we'll put this thing on the bike and charge you for it and tell you it helps you, when actually if you own one of these bikes and ride it properly, you won't want that. I'd have that off immediately. As you can tell, I'm getting frustrated with this thing, so I'm going to conclude. Look, yes, the new DRZ is out, and it will be coming to the UK, and it is quite a cool looking bike, and if it's at a good price, I will be like, double thumbs up, forget it was even related to the DRZ. It is what it is in its own right, and it's a good bike. But it's going to have the exact same limitations the old one had, I fear. If they bring it out at a price range that is closer to the other stuff, it's going to be actually laughable that Suzuki even bother bringing these into the UK, because they will sell none. As I said, it's a hard enough sell as it is at the moment, because who the hell is even buying this in the UK? Generally, the people who want to ride this bike are in their early 20s. They're not going out there and buying these brand new. I mean, finance. I know people are buying stuff on finance. For the love of God, people, stop buying stuff on finance. You're paying an interest and throwing 20% of that away anyway. So I know it's a problem having the money to buy a new bike, but this is why I say don't go and buy that. Go and buy a different bike that you can afford, and then save up until you can buy this outright. The problem is this, right? I'm really just hacked off and disappointed in Suzuki for not having the balls to produce the bike that everyone who owned one of those bikes wanted. Instead, you went with a consortium, you went with accountants, you went what was safe, you went for the mean middle, and you ended up making what essentially will probably be very uninspiring and boring in comparison to what it could have been. Still be a fun bike, but if you knew the old DR, if you knew what we wanted, if you knew what it could have been, you're probably going to be somewhat disappointed. As I say, when it comes to me reviewing this bike, I will be able to objectively use it for what it is, but then my opinion is very much going to hinge on what the price is. So that one's down to you, Suzuki. You better knock this one out of the park price-wise, otherwise you're going to be, it's not going to last 25 years, I say that much. So there you go. It's either really annoying and not the bike we asked for more money than it should be, or it's a fun little dual sport that could have been a lot better for a budget. Where it lands in that, who knows? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Subscribe if you're new here, I'd appreciate that. Support me through Patreon and through YouTube memberships, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.